Greetings and welcome to Etzheim's weekly podcast, recorded live in Richardson, Texas. We invite you now to join us for one of our synagogue's Shabbat messages.
Well, it's my first time to speak to you in this room. It's nice. It's big. Well, it could be even bigger. There are bigger buildings for worship in Dallas, right? So would you like to move to a bigger building, having more people attending the services? Well, maybe. We live in sort of consumer society, so it impacts the church's big deal. Talking to the students that I'm teaching, talking to different Christians, leaders, and people who attend the services, here in Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, for example, I see how much we are impacted by the mentality, the consumer mentality. You know, the churches are competing sometimes about in what regards the number of the people in attendance. And in order to have more people, you need to have better quality of everything. So you need to have better teaching, better child care, you need to get better Sunday school, you need to have very good ushers, you need to have very good building, you need to have professional services. But in order to have professional services and good teaching, you need to have more people in order to pay better salary to the preacher, right? It's like a closed circle, and we caught in this circle. We need to have more people to provide better quality, and we need to provide better quality to have more people. Nothing personal, just business sometimes. So we need to develop the churches, or even, well, Messianic congregation at times as well, as sort of business, competing with each other. And now, just from this standpoint of mentality, just imagine somebody comes to a church. And I'm talking now a church, but you can apply it to a Messianic congregation. Because we are very similar. Even if we are Jewish, we are still people. Right? So, and we are impacted by the cultural patterns of the society, regardless of our ethnicity, regardless of our age, regardless of our gender, etc. So somebody enters, a new person comes to a church or Messianic congregation. And the feeling of this new person, on the average, from what I heard from people, is like, okay, I'm coming to listen to the teaching. And if the teaching is good, I expect the teaching to be good. And the first impression, like the building, how big is the building, how am I greeted, what quality of paper I got, like it got better with Etzheim. Those of you who are long here, do you know it got better? Praise God. So bigger building, better quality, right? That's normal. So, but if you go to a bigger building, church, or Messianic congregation, sometimes you can get even better quality program, right? And sometimes it looks like a magazine. Yeah, because the bigger church has bigger money. They can pay for the services. I'm not sure that the one who produced this got paid for the designing this. I'm not sure. I may be mistaken. The elders know better. But in big churches, you can pay for that. Well, the person comes and watches for a good service, for a good ministry, for good quality. It's like a performance. So everybody got to perform. And the better is performance, the higher are the chances that I'm going to stay here. Because I love to have good services. I love to be treated well. And I love to attend like high-end event. Now, The person is coming, and the pastor, on a general, or a rabbi, Rabbi David thinks differently, but on a general, just the person is coming, and the pastor is thinking, oh, I can't wait to minister to this person. I will lay down my life for this person. No, nobody thinks this way. Or maybe Rabbi David. But otherwise, the person is coming and the pastor thinks, I have to admit it. I'm leading a congregation myself. So, more people, more finances, maybe. But I feel better. Because they come to listen me teach. They come, maybe he or she will stay here. Oh, please stay, because I need to report to the elders board that we are growing as the church or as the congregation. It's so nice to have more people. It shows that we are doing good. It shows that we are sort of like successful. It should be different. Unfortunately, we are not coming to churches of the congregations. And again, forgive me that I'm mentioning churches, if I have to be forgiven for that at all. But I'm talking churches and Messianic congregations. It would be nice to have it done differently. I'm entering this building because I want to change the world for better, because I want to impact something in the place I live. I want to be part of something significant, something big, not part of a nice event. Amen. I want to be part of something what changes this world for better, something what brings people to Yeshua, the Messiah of Israel. And the pastor should think, well, new person is coming, and I'm not alone any longer because somebody will be ministering with me. Or the rabbi will think this way. Well, we are getting not just more dollars by every new person, and not just peace in or just like satisfaction on our heart that we are doing the right things, or so to speak, that we are growing, and we see and we feel some success. You see what I mean by that? We look in the biblical pictures back then in the history of Israel and in the history of mankind, and what we see there, we see the people of Israel, and we talk about the structures among the people of Israel. And the structure was, there were different groups, bigger groups, like Levites, priests, and they should serve, right? So the priests are serving, ministering in the temple. They serve the cult. So they bring the sacrifices, they pray, they petition to God. And there are the Levites around the priests who serve like deacons, so to speak, in the temple, doing some practical things, helping the priests to do their job. And then there are just simple Israelites. And the simple Israelites, they're not doing anything in the temple besides bringing their sacrifices. And part of these sacrifices are given to the Levites. And 10% of what Levites are getting is given to the priests. So the ministry of the Israelites regarding the temple, etc., is just primarily to bring something for the Levites and for the priests to eat. For them to be able to survive without land and without the country and without doing business and without the necessity to get this money from somewhere else by a hard labor. Do you remember this system in Israel? Some try to apply it for today. So we pay a preacher. We pay the rabbi, we pay the pastor, we pay the deacons or the ministers, we pay for cleaning, for getting food ready, we pay for setting the chairs, we pay for worship, we pay for everything. So we bring our donations or tithing to the church, or to a Messianic congregation, we brought our check, my job is done, I'm not to do anything else, just I'm sitting here on the pew, just serve me. Is it not a consumer mentality of today? Is it not like it's everything built? You go to a concert, somewhere like symphony concert, you pay the ticket, you sit down, just, I'm here to enjoy the performance. And if the performance is not good, I'm not going to pay you again, right? So I'm looking for another concert. I'm looking for another church, quote unquote. So, and then you go to a restaurant. You are ready to pay for your food, and you want the food to be good. So, but you sit down, you let yourself to be served to. You expect the waiter to come and to serve, and the tip for the waiter depends on how well he performed his or her job, right? The same as with the churches, based upon what we just reminded ourselves from the Old Testament, from the history of Israel. I brought my check to the church. Preach me. Just give me your sermon. Give me good worship. Give me good aneg. Give me good setting in the room. Give me good program of the service. Just give me, because I paid for that. It's like, you can say, Israel did the same. Probably right. But with the Yeshua event, something changed. If you carefully read the Messianic writings, I mean the New Testament, the most famous Jewish book ever, you can find out we all are priests. In certain way, we are not to pay each other for our services. Well, it's culturally determined. I don't mean don't pay your pastor, rabbi, or whatever. No, I don't mean that. But keep it in mind. Something changed in the divine design. It's not there are priests, Levites, and everybody else who pays for the services. We are all priests according to the teaching of the apostles. It's one thing that changed. There is another thing that is commonly used. Do you remember Israelites were walking in the desert, and there was Moses, their leader, and he got a smart advice to divide the people of Israel, or just in different, not like groups, but to set the leaders for like different groups, and the reporting system. So everybody reports like a pyramid. And everybody reports, and it comes to the Moses, but he gets only the most important stuff to deal with. It's a corporate structure. And in many books about how to run the business biblical way, you can read about this advice. Well, it's smart advice indeed. Not necessarily very spiritual, but smart. It was done not by a believer, right? Even not by Israelite. This advice was not given by a godly man. It was given by a smart but probably unbelieving man. Well, it's wise advice, but not necessarily very spiritual. It works for business. It can work for churches and Messianic congregations even today. But with Yeshua, something changed. Something what was necessary at the time of Exodus to successfully, as a corporate Israel, and I'm emphasizing corporate Israel, to travel in the desert, something changed with Yeshua coming. We cease to be a pyramid, whatever way you want to build this pyramid, like from the bottom up or from the up to the bottom, it doesn't matter. We function differently. Let's look at that, at some passages in the Messianic writings in this regard. Let's start with the book of Romans. chapter 12. In chapter 12, verses 1 through 8, the Apostle Paul writes the following. Therefore, I urge you, brothers and sisters, in view of God's mercy, to offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is. His good, pleasing, and perfect will. For by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, do not think of yourself more highly than you ought, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment, in accordance with faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us has one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so in the Messiah, we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each of us. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in according with your faith. If it is serving, then serve. If it is teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. If it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do it diligently. If it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully. You see the structure here? The structure is clearly built upon one another. It's not like I am paying you and you are doing something to me. We serve each other. We exercise our gifts toward each other. The structure of the body of the Messiah, even by the definition, even by the terminology, is not a pyramid. It's not a corporate entity. It's not like priests, Levites, and everybody else. It's the body. And in this body, everybody is a member. And I would encourage you to do your personal study built upon the word one another. The Apostle Paul was very big on this word. You got your gift, and everybody did. Everybody has a gift. Everybody has skills to do some ministry. You got it, you minister with that. You are placed in the body of the Messiah in a unique way, and you got to live accordingly. You got to function accordingly. If you look at the bodies of the church and even some Messianic congregations today, you would notice usually this body looks like a big head and with some big hands, and everybody else is a big ear. Is it healthy? No. Just try to picture this body for yourself. It's like a zombie. It's like it's a horror movie. You can ask Hollywood to make a horror movie built upon the church structure or church body today, or even the Messianic body. You can write a script. you will get an Oscar. Because it's scary. What we see in the churches and Messianic congregations at times today. The body is not healthy. Because even this big head is, in many cases, a preacher, a rabbi, pastor. But that's not the head of the body. We're going to read more about that. Who is the head of the body? Yeshua, not the pastor, not the preacher, not the rabbi. Let's read 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verses 20 through 28. First Corinthians chapter 12 actually is one of my favorite chapters and one of my favorite passages regarding congregational growth and development in the Bible, because the entire chapter describes the body of the Messiah, the healthy church, a Messianic congregation. It's described there. I would love to read the whole chapter, but I will limit myself for the sake of time and your ability to comprehend by reading, just to 9 verses, reading from here. But I would encourage you to read this chapter carefully, maybe later today or tonight. From verse 20 through 28, 1 Corinthians chapter 12. As it is, there are many parts, but one body. The eye cannot say to the hand, I don't need you. And the head cannot say to the feet, I don't need you. On the contrary, those parts of the body that seem to be weaker are indispensable. And the parts that we think are less honorable, we treat with special honor. And the parts that are unpresentable are treated with special modesty, while our presentable parts need no special treatment. But God has put the body together, giving greater honor to the parts that lacked it, so that there should be no division in the body, but that its parts should have equal concern for each other. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. Now, you are the body of the Messiah, and each one of you is a part of it. And God has placed in the church, first of all, apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then miracles, then gifts of healing, of helping, of guidance, and of different kinds of tongues. In many cases, this last verse, 28, is highly emphasized over other verses that I just read. These are not the most important types of ministry. These are just like examples of how to exercise the fact that you are part of one body and we are to care for each other. Look at this point, look at the main point of Paul in this passage. Now, you are the body of the Messiah, and each one of you is part of it. And in the whole context, we are to minister and to care for each other. I entitle my drush for today as Messianic Musketeers, all for one and one for all. because we are such. It should be our slogan. It's very biblical because we depend on each other. Look what is written in verse 26. If one part suffers, every part suffers with it. If one part is honored, every part rejoices with it. If I recall it correctly, I already read this verse here at its time in previous years. This verse is not new to you, neither to me. But the point is, we are essentially in need of each other. Because if you suffer, you individually, we all are going to suffer. If you are honored, it's a joy for all of us. Do you see it as a commandment? Is it an imperative? No. It's a statement. It's a fact. It's not up to us, and it's not our deliberate decision to suffer with those who suffer. We suffer with those who suffer, period. It's a fact. It's not our deliberate decision for me to feel good if somebody is honored. I unavoidably will feel better if somebody is honored. Period. I think that this illustration of the body is essential for our life and the perception of what Messianic congregation means. When we enter this door, we are musketeers. In the way, all for one and one for all. Period. It's not even the decision for us to make. It's the way God made us in one body. One more passage. Ephesians chapter 4. It's actually in Ephesians 4:16, one of my favorite passages in the New Testament, in Pauline epistles at least. Well, I have many favorite passages in the Bible and in the New Testament. I love this book. Simply, everything is so important, so helpful, so encouraging, so motivating. Read the Bible. It's a blessing to have the Bible. Well, Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 through 16. So Messiah himself gave the apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the pastors and teachers to equip his people for works of service, so that the body of Christ, of the Messiah, may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, and become mature, attaining to the whole measure of the fullness of the Messiah. Then we will no longer be infants, tossed back and forth by the waves and blown here and there by every wind of teaching and by the cunning and craftiness of people in their deceitful shaming. Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of Him who is the head, that is, the Messiah. From Him, the whole body, joined and held together by every supporting ligament, grows and builds itself up in love as each part does its work. That's the secret of a congregational growth. That's the strategy how the congregation can grow. You don't need the father-in-law of Moses to come to us any longer. We don't need to orient ourselves solely and primarily on the corporate world structures. We don't need to talk about the pyramids any longer, whatever way the pyramids are built, because the structure of the body is pretty simple. Everybody serves and ministers according to the divine design God placed in his or her life. Everybody serves according to his or her measure. And if somebody serves less than he or she should do, then the body is developing some strange qualities. A person who has weak legs would need to have stronger arms. We don't need to compensate for those who don't minister according to their measure. We all need to minister according to the divine design and calling he placed in our life. This passage was started by mentioning again some ministries that considered to be the most prominent, quote unquote. The ministries that are usually paid for. You bring your check, you pay for the services of those described there. And when you bring your check, sometimes you forgot. Maybe you're a hand, maybe you're a leg, maybe you're even a finger, ear, tongue, nose, eye, hair, I don't know. You're an essential part of this body, as well as I am, as well as the elders of this congregation, as well as the worship leader, as well as the rabbi of the congregation. We all are part of essential part. So when you are, quote unquote, shopping for a Messianic congregation or for a church, don't shop for a good preacher. Don't shop for a good and absolutely professional worship, first of all. Don't shop for a nice magazine program, primarily. Shop for the right body for you to be part of.
There you go.
I would encourage you to, as I mentioned before, to do some study on one another in the New Testament. You will be impressed because in these passages, we are encouraged to pray for one another. Even like in the famous passage of James chapter 5, when if somebody is sick, invite the elders to pray, and the prayer will help. Just confess your sin, and it will be forgiven. In the same context, it's written, pray for each other, because the prayer of many can work miracles. We expect the elders to pray for us, and that's a right expectation. But it doesn't deny or diminish our need to pray for each other. To visit sick, it's good when the elders visit. But when an elder comes to visit somebody in a hospital, it would be very biblical to find there somebody from the congregation already visiting. We can find the passages like, be hospitable to one another, receive one another. It's not just like, he's an elder, or he's a leader. He is paid or not paid for that, but I assume that he will receive me, he will talk to me, he will listen to me, and so forth. The Bible says in this body structure, receive each other, welcome each other, talk to each other, listen to each other, care for each other. We talk about Christian or Messianic love. And love is great and big and good. We all like to talk about love. It's so natural and so right. But when we talk about love, we need to keep in mind, love is not a Disney cartoon. It's not like hearts, small red hearts jumping around, like tongue like this, and just boo, 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 boo. You know, this Disney types of old-fashioned love feelings. It's not about that. It's about ministering. I love my hand if I protect it also. I love my ear if I keep it warm when it's cold like it is right now, or even colder. You see the point? Love is very practical. And love is not the quality that is solely assigned to the rabbi, to a pastor, to elders. It's to all of us. You can find passages about one another that, although saying, younger men, be subject to your elders, the next clause says, just be in humility to one another. Submit yourself to one another. We need to be in some humility to the elders, but at the same time, we need to be humble. We need to humble ourselves also to one another. We can find passages like Paul, the Apostle Paul, who could encourage, motivate, and rebuke, if necessary, other believers. He writes to the people in Rome, to the congregation in Rome, I want to come to you to be encouraged by you, or for us, you Romans, to be encouraged by one another. So, to encourage one another. Paul was seeking the encouragement of those he was teaching. He was trying to be edified by other people who were his disciples. Have you ever thought that your pastor, your rabbi, needs some encouragement and needs to be edified by you as well? If you expect him to care for you, he has all biblical rights to expect you to care for him. You can find passages like where it's written that that we are called to teach one another. It's not just for the teachers or paid teachers or those who are ordained to teach, whatever it means, to teach you. We are to teach one another. It's not just for us to wait till there is like a Bible study. Maybe it's for us to start a Bible study. It's not probably for some of us to wait that there is like a home group started somewhere. It's maybe for us to start a home group. Discipleship class, it's something maybe what I should start. That's the idea that some of you could have. Teach each other. If you expect that there is a new believer and the rabbi is going to teach him or her, and the rabbi only, it's maybe pretty contemporary cultural appropriate, but that's not biblical. You can find passages like if somebody is in sin, just rebuke each other, confront each other, just help each other to go out of the sinful lifestyle. Well, being from a different culture, I learned something. If there is a problem, and if you are doing something wrong on your job or as a student or as like educator or whatever, people are not going to you directly, just telling, excuse me, you're probably doing that incorrectly, or you're doing something wrong. They go behind your back to your supervisor. And they talk to your supervisor because it's easier. It's easier. You don't need to have a direct confrontation. You talk to somebody who probably will feel even better when you complain about somebody else. Because he or she would feel, oh, I'm a good supervisor because I'm better than that one. So it's like easier to go that way. I don't say that it's like wrong or bad. It's just the way culture functions. So if it's cultural appropriate, keep doing that, but not in the congregation, not in the church, not in the body of the Messiah. Go directly to the person and talk to him. Don't wait for your rabbi or an elder or a pastor to do that. Talk directly. Because that's what the Bible teaches us. That's the way the body functions. You can find passages like comfort each other. If somebody is dead, if somebody passed away. In 1 Thessalonians, Paul writes that there will be the resurrection of the dead in the Messiah. Encourage each other by these words. So don't be in mourning long time. Try to encourage each other. Don't expect your pastor, rabbi, elder, or leader to do that solely to everyone. Go to the one who is in sorrow and try to encourage. Take care of one another. Love one another practically. You can find passages that say, like, encourage and build up each other. Help each other to grow up in the Lord. Even if you're not paid for that. Even if it's not your official ministry at the congregation. Just do it. You can find passages like stimulate one another to love and good deeds. It's like pastoral or rabbi's responsibility. No. It's the responsibility of each of us. These are just some examples. Let me admit something. Today, or this morning, before coming to preach, I asked one of the elders at the congregation, is there anything practical you need help with? Just to mention as an example. And the answer was, well, we need help in the kitchen. Because it's not fair that the same people are doing that all over, again, just every Shabbat. They need to take part in the worship as well, right? So, if you want to support the body somehow, today it's not a check. First of all, you can submit a check as well. I don't want Rabbi David giving me such look. So just like, please submit your check as well. But it's not just about the check. You go and you sign to help in the kitchen if you can. If you feel some urgency in your heart or in your conscience to participate in feeding all of us, in ministering to each other, even by this means. there is no more like respectful or less respectful ministry in the body. We care for each other. We try to minister one another. I would encourage you to keep it in mind and live as the Messianic Musketeers. All for one, one for all. That's the divine design. That's the way the body of the Messiah is created. We cannot break the consumer society, but we can build something on the top of it. Messiah has come to minister to us. He became a slave for us. He took the flesh. He suffered. He died. He rose from the dead. He's on a throne. He sends His Spirit. His Spirit, the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, gives us gifts and abilities, supernatural abilities to minister, to glorify the Messiah in serving people and serving one another. And I will read as the conclusion what I sent as a description of this drash again. Messianic Musketeers, all for one, one for all. According to the divine design, everybody is essential for a congregation to grow. And may God help us in that. Amen.